Hello, welcome to another fun-packed edition of Open All Hours, the QPR podcast that comes every week with the same amount of happiness. Okay, I'm Paul Finney. I'm hosting. This week we're joined by Robert Gilbert.
Hello.
Charlie Wise.
Hello.
Bit deep for you, but thanks anyway. And
gotta try.
QPR CEO Lee Hughes is here to answer as many questions as we can fire them in our given time. And to anyone who wants us to abuse him, we're not going to do that. We're going to try and keep this respectful and honest and open, but we will ask difficult questions as everyone would expect us to. And just a little footnote, we know that we won't be asking the right questions for some, and we'll probably be too hard by so many. I'm aware, and we won't please everyone. We know that, but we'll do our best. Right, Lee, Robert's going to kick off with some questions, and then we'll just go from there, big man, if that's okay with you.
Okay, that's absolutely fine.
Welcome. It's a good one.
Right,
Off you go.
First of all, thanks, Lee, for giving up your evening. And also, I think it's brave to, one win in 14. We've had owners and directors in the past that wouldn't come and speak to the fans. So I think you should be commended and applauded for coming in and chatting to us tonight. So we'll start by saying that. And then I guess straight into it, because everyone wants to know, a bit boring. The Linford Christie Stadium, is there any update at all on that?
No, there's absolutely nothing on the Linford Christie Stadium right now. We'll continue to look at all options, including speaking with people in terms of what could you actually do at the site itself. But the Linford Christie stuff is, as I think I said before, that is such a long, slow burner. The council really haven't done anything more in terms of consultation. I've heard seems to have be difficult to get things going again post COVID, and I'm sure they've got a lot of other things on their mind right now. Anyway,
at what point do we sort of look outside the borough and say, because if I remember correctly, we sort of said that Linford Christie was probably our last chance to stay in W12. You've said in the past that Loftus Road we love it, but it's a bit of a millstone round the neck, difficult to grow with it. At what point do we say we're going to have to move outside the borough?
I guess when the economics add up and it makes sense to do it, because it's not like even outside the borough, there's not as if there's a ton of land around in places that you could actually build a stadium on. And then too, like I said, you want to give the council and you give the club every chance they can to do something. I'm conscious that twice before inappropriate comments were made during interviews, which caused me massive headaches in the aftermath of those comments with the council. So you can understand also that I'll keep my cards very close to my chest and not repeat the mistakes that others have made.
Okay, so I think we can deduce from that we're gonna be staying at Loftus Road for the foreseeable future. What plans? I mean, you've said before you'd like to try and do some work to it each summer. Have we got anything planned for this summer to tart it up a bit? Because I've got to be honest, there's more and more, I'd say, unrest and disquiet amongst the fans about the actual state of the place. It feels like it's falling into a little bit of disrepair at the moment. It's a little unloved. So I don't know what plans there are in the summer, if anything, to tart it up.
Well, I got to tell you, I was at Loftus Road ground sharing with Fulham many years ago. And Fulham were the ones who actually tarted it up a bit then. It was, I can't say that it suddenly happened. Like it was this beautiful pearl of a stadium that people have been going to year in and year out. It's always been hard work to try and keep up anyway. Each year, I think we got a step by step. We do a little bit more. We did the rail seating this past summer to implement that in terms of an improvement. We do try and tackle a few toilets every summer as well in terms of doing that, because the first lot of toilets we did over at the Stanley Bowles stand when we first started the projects, they were in horrible condition. So we have started to revamp. We will get all around the stadium, but to try and do everything all at once is going to be impossible. There'll also be some turning up this summer with we said we wanted to start the Loft Legends stand as well to complement what we'd already started with the rail seating. So designs are going ahead with that and seeing what we can do. And, you know, Forever Ours has been great in terms of working with us on that and helping us out in terms of trying to take that project forward.
Can I just add something, Lee? I mean, my main concern, and I'll be lying if I didn't say so, was most people, South Africa Road where I sit, are going to, well, I say most people I know, I don't know everyone, believe it or not, are turning up to games and just going home. No one's hanging around the stadium to spend any money. No one's putting money in the tills. They kind of just come to the games and going away straight away. There's no bar for us to hang around in, like we used to have the members bar. The blue and white is just, people just won't go there from different stands, and it shuts so early anyway, and things like that. Is there plans to build something in the area for QPR fans to be based, like where the, you know, Norwegian R's, people from overseas can come and everything else? You know what I mean? Just keep people in the area for a wee bit longer, because basically we're going to the games and we're going home, and that's it. We're just watching the game.
Well, a couple of things. Weirdly, the spend per head is up this season. Compared, this is probably one of the best campaigns that Elliot has ever seen in terms of the spend per head. So sometimes there's perception and then there's reality, and that the fact of the matter is people are spending more at the stadium. The blue and white bar is something in the project that we're putting together with the Forever Ours to try and take that forward. Don't want to steal anybody's thunder on that once those things are ready. That certainly is something that we look forward to trying to reinvigorate that, since you mentioned that one in particular.
Is there something to be said for sort of running promotions of, you know, to get people into the ground half an hour earlier, you know, a free pint, a free pie once a month, something like that? Because,
some Valium.
Sorry, Valium.
Some Valium.
Because yeah, I agree with Paul. I mean, I've got a lot of friends who are Spurs fans, and they said the biggest change in their new stadium is just how much earlier they get to the games, because there's just, and look, we all know the walkways are skinny. We all know that we all know what we're working with Loftus Road. But are there, you know, are we actively looking at ways to, you know, I'm sure we are, increase revenue, get people in early, run promotions, just also to build the atmosphere there. If people have been in there earlier, the atmosphere will build a bit better as well.
Sorry, I'm saying anything about the atmosphere. Before it was, God, if we had a standing area, a rail seating, oh, the atmosphere would be so much better. Now it's like, oh, if we could only get people there earlier, then the atmosphere would be better. It's always something else, isn't it, guys?
There's always something. And look, the rail seating's been a real success. I think everyone.
I agree. Yeah, I think it has helped.
I think we've been unlucky that there've only been three goals down that end. And also, I love the flags that we put there. I think that's what I mean is it's. You say like, yeah, if we do, you know, there's always something, but I don't think any of us would sit here and say the atmosphere at Loftus Road is great at the moment. And I think the fans are, you know, we want the atmosphere to be good, and I think we can't always. We're QPR. We're not Man United. We're not Man City. We can't we don't expect the team to be winning every game 2-3-0. So I don't think it's unreasonable for us to be looking at ways to, you know, what would appear to fans to be easy wins to increase the atmosphere.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not trying to denigrate it in any way whatsoever, because in fact, what I like is people coming up with ideas and feeding stuff in. The fact that I'm not very well right now probably doesn't help right now. I think my wife is actually shitting herself saying, I'm not sure you're in the right frame of mind to be doing a fans cast tonight. But there might be some people think that's exactly the frame of mind we want to hear right now. But you know, if I just thought it was simply as getting people there early and doing, because we have done in the past, we have tried, I should say Elio have tried, because they're the people that we hire to cater, and getting people there earlier, doing, it's had very, very limited success. And the reality is, I think you actually put your finger right on it. Even when I look out at halftime and I see that, bowl still half full. Even with the bowl half full, and only half the people inside getting served, it's still chock-a-block. You literally couldn't get everybody that's in the stadium inside for halftime anyway. So that we always know that is a big problem in terms of being able to cater for everybody. But I just think, you know, yeah, sure, we could try some additional. I think first things first, Tottenham's new stadium, the production facilities there were the key.
Of course.
And for me,
it was an observation and like I said, everyone's aware of the limitations of Loftus Road. Like, no one's expecting, you know, 10,000 people to be there an hour before the game. Like, everyone's aware of the limitations. Like, that goes without saying.
But no, what we're saying is let's start with the product, what people are actually going there for. Because if you said you might have a penchant for a certain beer, you might not quite like the stuff that's being served at the stadium. There could be multiple different things. You might, I've had complaints. I've had both complaints and compliments about the change of pies this year. I think the pies were actually much better than they were last year. But people have different preferences in terms of that. But the reality is, start with the quality of the product. Even before we get to the prices, let's start with the quality. And that is a very difficult stadium to work with that Elio has in terms of trying to get things out with production kitchens and lack of cellar space for beers and everything else. So straight away it causes a problem. Happy to speak to them. In fact, it wouldn't be bad to for a couple of people that wanted to work with Elio, direct with the fans. That's probably the best way. It's all well and good people telling me and then me telling Elio, or you and telling Elio or whomever. But the best way to do this is like get some sample groups out there, get some guys pushing about what works and what doesn't work. And in the past, Elio have been quite open to doing things like that, and trying different things. Obviously we've tried things like the new mac and cheese stuff that's going on at the stadium and everything else. But you have to recognize the limitations with which they'll have to work. But that's not to say that we can't try anything. But I have found in the past, if you occasionally do maybe some kind of special or something like that, you might get people. And what I found out is the more regular it gets, the less people then start to turn up because it becomes, I just prefer going to the pub, meeting all the mates down there anyway.
Can I just comment this in terms of from a different perspective? I think why some people really see this almost as an opportunity in some essence, because I think with the launch of, firstly, I've got a couple of questions around the corner bar. Firstly, where is this corner bar? And I think as well why it caused a bit of a stir in terms of people. Even myself, I would go down to the stadium and have a few beers, in the ground before if there was almost a bit more capability in doing so. I know staffing's a bit of a problem. I think potentially, like we talk about these, I think there is a need for almost these sample groups to give feedback in terms of, because I do think there is still an opportunity there. And I think why that causes people frustrations, because they see this offering of this corner bar where in the current climate where £79 for a season ticket holder to go in before and have a few drinks, etc., almost feels like a little bit of isolation where people are happy just to go a bit earlier, have a few drinks, but then when we put out this positioning and not marketing towards the mass in terms of, as Rob mentioned, around a free pie once a month or XYZ, I think that's why for me it caused a bit of a stir. But could you run us through this corner bar? Where is it? What is it looking to achieve?
Yeah, the corner bar is down in the literally in the corner of it would be the first two boxes. It used to be the players' lounge. But what we've done is we revamped the players' lounge. Which I'll take you through the whole thing. The old players' lounge is now the corner bar. So we've knocked through the walls there, and we've taken part of that corner where it used to be part of Andy Evans's office, which used to be Sheila Marston's office, and turned that. So it literally is that entire corner of the ground. You really couldn't. It'd be difficult to watch a match there from inside like that you can with the rest of the boxes, because it looks out in the pitch. With that, because part of it is right behind the away fans anyway, anybody that's sitting in front of you or standing up or something like that is going to block the view, which is why it's kind of a stand-up offering. You won't get the full catering because we just don't have the catering kitchen to support it. So it's a slightly different option in terms of the finger buffet and everything else. And then you actually would have to sit outside again because of the view of the pitch is not the greatest. So that's where it is, just down from the old players bar, which we've converted back into boxes. Then right right next to that. That's where the new corner bar is. And then the new players lounge, just everybody is the old media suite. So then we converted. I've considerably less people working for the club now than when I first came in here. And so we've taken the upstairs offices and literally consolidated everybody and turned half of the offices into a new media suite. So that's the 1, 2, 3 domino effect.
Okay, so in terms of going back to sort of the original topic we were talking about, I know there's been lots of things said about the staffing issues, etc. What other barriers is there to say in a month's time, you put out posts all across socials, advertised and said, right, everybody, we're opening the ground early from 1 o'clock. You get a free pie with your first beer you buy, etc. Try and create a bit more of a culture to get people into the clubs, generate more revenue and create that, and also open afterwards. What other barriers are we kind of not really seeing from your side that's kind of limiting this almost transition that we feel the club needs to move towards?
Just so you understand the contractual arrangement as well between us and Elio, we literally the Elio have a license to operate, so they pay us a royalty. And it's then to them in terms of a license, in terms of what they do from there. And quite frankly, we rely on them and their work with other clubs to drive things, because, in an ideal world, if you could have a catering operation 24/7, you do it in-house. I was at Burnley, we did the catering in-house, and it was great. It was the most profitable operation I've ever seen. Did a really, really good job up there. But here, there's just not enough justification to you can't, because you won't operate the stadium 24/7. You'll operate the stadium once a fortnight. Occasionally you'll have something there, but it's not that often. It tends not to be full-blown conference and banqueting. It normally would tend to be just sandwiches and having the bar open. So the first thing would be Elio in terms of, from a cost justification standpoint, with what they're paying us for a license fee, does it make sense for them to do it? Because obviously the whole reason they would do it would be because they want to get more people in, because they want to make it's about trying to make the extra cash in order to justify it for being open. So that's going to be the first thing in terms of, is it worth opening? Do we get enough people in here? But listen, I'm sure nobody. That's kind of my point.
That's kind of my point. Sorry to interject, but it's kind of like, we won't know unless we try and really give it a push. And we kind of just sit back and go, well, no one comes to the ground early. No one has a beer before. We don't make the revenue, so we don't do it. But it doesn't come to a point where it's like, we need the extra revenue. We're never going to know unless we really push it and really try. Do you kind of see that perspective?
Yeah, but there's a theoretical world of people who aren't experienced in it, who don't do it on a day by day. I know we have tried it before. Now I don't have the figures in front of me of what the sales were like, and on the odd time that we have tried it, my commercial director would be able to do that. But what I'm saying is, I wouldn't knock it out of the park and say it won't work. I'm happy to talk with these guys to see, but it's a bit like the theory that lower the prices and you'll get more people in the stadium. Well, that is total nonsense. That doesn't work. That might be theoretical economics, how it works on a pure supply and demand type of scale, but in football it absolutely doesn't work, and it's all about the competition, and it's one of the most inelastic pricing things you can do. But yet still, people will still say, oh, but if you lower the prices you get more people in, when you know absolutely that's not going to work. But it's, unless you've had experience in dealing with it, in theory, that sounds right.
So, Lee, you mentioned there the competition. And Brentford obviously are in a new stadium. Fulham have just built their new stand, and I don't think it's ridiculous to say that's kind of our competition. Similar sized clubs, same area. What are we doing to I'm not talking about slashing prices, but to incentivize new fans? What are we doing to get new people through the door to hopefully convert whatever percent that's needed into season ticket holders? Because surely ultimately the value for there's value in season ticket holders. Surely the aim is to get new people in the ground for them to enjoy themselves regardless of the football, because God bless us, with QPR you can't always rely on the football. But what are we doing? I know when people say, oh, go into local schools, and are there people looking at that? It feels like that lower school end used to be open a lot more for our fans. I know we're doing kids for £1 against Blackburn, which is great. Are there more things like that in the pipeline? And I suppose you'll tell me, and I'm interested to know, does it cost extra to open up the lower school end to home fans and what the conversion rate needs to be. So yeah, what are we doing?
Well, we were selling out the school end. We were using it, selling it for home fans. So it had been going well. Then obviously, but then the Burnley game where we thought everything would be, we held it back. We said no, we're not going to give it to Burnley because we've been selling it out, and there was just no uptake on it. Fans just didn't engage with it. Now things like Kids for a Quid, you can do that. And I think that's we do that to try to engage with local schools. I think we probably get more out of sending players to schools and programs than we do with actual price points. Because the whole idea is to make it personal to QPR, because I can appreciate that, little Johnny might come in and say, I watched Arsenal on TV last night, but I want little Jimmy to say, yeah, but I met a QPR player at the school. That is very good. The family stand for the people who knock it has been a success, because we have seen a change in demographics of families coming in. So that's been very, very helpful. So yeah, those types of young people initiative. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not going to go down to Shepherd's Bush and hand out leaflets, and people are suddenly going to go, oh, I was going to go to Chelsea, but now I'm going to go to QPR. You're just not, and boards in particular, especially when they're new to football, that's always the thing. They have that one thing. We need to make people come and make them want to come and have a great experience, regardless of the football. But the reality is, in England, that might work in the States because it's more about the experience. But in England, it starts, the greatest marketing tool in the world is winning. And it all starts with what happens on the pitch. When I went home beginning of last year on an international weekend, and I went to a Baltimore Ravens game. And the one thing that really struck me is we're getting into the second quarter, coming up to halftime, and the stadium was still half empty. It was nearly a flipping sellout of 70,000 people, but the stadium was half empty because people were there for the experience. Whereas I've had a US guest who came over. In fact, her husband owns the Baltimore Orioles, and she came in. It was our game against Leeds a few years ago, and she said after the match, she said, "I've noticed something here. Here, it's a lot less about the experience and much more about what's happening on the pitch." And she's absolutely spot on. And I think any American investor coming into English football probably could speak to her, because in England, it's a mature market. It's not a young market, unsophisticated market like it is in the States, where people are just trying to get into football, and you can probably get people from other sports, or maybe convert somebody from Galaxy to LAFC. But here, it starts. It's so young, and there's such a deep understanding and attachment to the game from such a young age that unless someone's moving here and they want to pick up QPR as a second team, which we have had initiatives to try to work on in terms of people new coming into the area, and it has been some limited success on that. You might be a Newcastle fan, but you move down to London for work or whatever, one place to go for football, and bang, that's the kind of stuff that worked. But to convert large scale amounts of people and to say, to treat football like it was any other product, it just doesn't work. And I know the importance of on the pitch. It has to start with on the pitch, and that's ultimately the be all and end all. This is really weird, because normally it would be arguing what you guys are arguing, and me and then you arguing my position the other way around.
I just want to, before the other guys, I just want to interject, because I had a feeling you'd say that. I hope you don't mind. And I looked up,
Robert.
I looked up. I think most QPR fans will agree. Our lowest point was probably when we lost to Vauxhall Motors on penalties in the FA Cup first round. The next home game was at home to Cardiff, on a Friday night, and it was live on TV, and we got 14,000 through the gate. So that was the base. The base, whether you're winning or not, is 14,000. So we've got 14,000 through the gate. That was in 2002. Fast forward to 2023, slightly different. We played Cardiff at home, wasn't on TV, but was on a weeknight. We got just under 13,000. And I'd say the equivalent fixture was probably the Sheffield United game this year. We're in poor form. It was on the box. Again, on a weeknight, we got 14,000. My point is that I understand and hear what you're saying about the product is the main driver, and you're right. Of course it is. When you're doing well, you're going to sell more tickets. But I feel, and I think, you know, we put questions out on Twitter and on the message board, the fans feel that the club could be doing more. And I know you say you like it when people come up with the ideas and don't just throw a problem at you without a solution, but it does feel that we are stagnant at the moment. There's a stale air in the stadium. The atmosphere against Swansea was, there was no atmosphere, and we were winning 1-0. And I don't know if that's because the fan base is getting older, if we're not bringing in the, because it's the teenagers and the youngsters that are going to make the noise, that are going to get excited by it, that aren't long in the tooth about it. And I mentioned last week about, I took my 5-year-old son to the Swansea game. He's been to a lot of games, and he actually doesn't want to come to Millwall because he was bored. And even something as simple as thought I'll get him a program, but it's cash only. Well, I don't know. Most people don't have cash on them. And it's things like that. It just feels like there's a lot of, at the moment at QPR, with the match day experience, I'm not talking about on the field, that there's a lot of shrugging of shoulders and saying, what more can we do? And I know you've mentioned you don't like it when people moan and don't have solutions, which is why something like an hour early for a beer, and I know that's a rubbish solution, or even I was thinking, it used to be that half time on the pitch they had round the pole, and again, I know we're going into the granular, and really
I won it twice.
Someone comes, they run round a pole, they try and score a penalty. It's funny, and you know what, if the team are rubbish, it's something. And and you are the numbers man, you're right, you've got the figures in front of you. And it just feels like there's a real sense that everyone at the club is kind of shrugging their shoulders and just saying, this is the best we can do with Loftus Road. And like I said, when we were in League One, we were getting these gates and the football was dire. And we're still getting these dates. And we've got players going off and playing in semi-finals of the World Cup. So, yes, I hear what you're saying, but I do feel, and I think many fans feel, there is more that can be done.
Okay.
Ran over.
No, not at all. So I think first of all, I have to say, wait, I listen. I don't like. I hope I haven't come across as saying, don't tell me your problem unless you have a solution. That's
I accept what you're saying.
That's something I say to my staff, but shouldn't be saying to the punters of QPR. So hopefully I haven't come across that way. But that's not to say. But I do like people who come up with ideas. Even if they're off the wall. I think that's great stuff. I'm willing to try different things. Like I said, you've got the stuff, things like halftime activity. I don't want to get to the granular either, but there are reasons. We've had to, you've seen the condition of the pitch with the end of a 10-year cycle with the pitch. And I've literally, from halftime activity to not selling or reducing the number of mascots. Now we've had to try to keep as much traffic as I can off the pitch for right now. I appreciate that probably may not come across well pre-match or at halftime, but right now I just need to serve that pitch as much as I can for the next couple of months till things start growing again towards the end of March. But you that's great. And I guess the other thing is like, when you guys there's perception and there's reality. And like I said, it's like people out there, they're not spending. It's like, but I'm looking at more transactions per game. It actually is, the numbers tell me this is on the up, as opposed to, and some of this is down to, listen, we cut the clean sheet at Swansea, we keep a clean sheet at Sheffield United, and we're not having this conversation. There's a completely different outlook on things from the fan base going forward. I always have to recognize.
I'm going to respectfully disagree on that, because, like I say, it's the whole experience. Even to the point where in the South Africa Road, you go to the men's toilets, there's still a sign up about the minute's silence for the Queen's death.
No, that's unacceptable. That is unacceptable.
But there's so many little things like that, and I'm sure a lot of fans have got their stories about things like that, and that's what I mean about feels like it's in a state of disrepair. Like it just feels, and this is really a reactive fan thing to say, but when you hear that there's a new media suite and a new players lounge, you think a bit like, well, they can spend money on that. Why can't they spend a bit of money where your general fan is? And I know it's not as simple as that, but that's how a passionate fan is going to feel. And I think it all adds to the atmosphere.
Well, why don't we do this? You've got people who would be quite keen, I'm sure, would have ideas, that we form a group that, I'll be completely open book in terms of budgets and money and everything else. And we go through things and we see what kinds of things we can work, whether it be from the catering, whether it be in terms of prioritizing. If I say, look, I got this amount of budget to put in a capital spend for this summer, where do you guys think would be the best place to spend it? As opposed to me thinking I know the best place to spend it. You guys tell me.
I think that's a good look. Like I said, the rail seating was fantastic. That was I believe it was spearheaded by fans. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%.
So we know it can work, and 100%. I agree on that. I agree. I think that is a good idea.
I just want to.
The thing is, I would say with these in typical situations, when we come up with these ideas, and I've talked to other people, some blue in the face about, you wouldn't know we're in the area. I know it winds everyone up, and I can't help it because it's something that's close to me. You come out of White City Station, Shepherd's Bush, whatever, you don't know what QPR is unless you follow everyone else. And there doesn't seem to be a hidden historic link with the area to the football club, sadly, in my opinion. So, blue and white history evenings, we've talked about this before, Lee, bringing people in, bringing players in. I know it's hard to organize, but fans have got to engage it as well. There's no point in us sorting this thing out and organising it and no one turns up. We've got to push it through as well and make sure it works, as do our bit, if the club are willing to help us and meet us halfway, which I'm sure they will, when they did with the safe standing. So there's all that kind of thing. I think it will happen. It's just a slow process, because Roberts talks about stagnation. The trouble is our league position is kind of staying around the same sort of place with a couple of good seasons and everything else. And everything is a Saturday, a Tuesday, a Friday, a Monday, a Sunday, whenever Sky decide we're allowed to play. And I get that, and I understand that it's all about that. But there does seem to be things we can do away from the pitch to embrace our history, our culture, and the fan base, and give people a wee bit more time around the stadium, in my humble opinion.
I think also a lot of fans had sorry, why don't you answer Paul's question and then ignore what I said? Answer Paul's question.
We do anyway.
I thought it was more of a statement.
Yeah. Feel free.
Well, I'll take it whatever you want.
I want to just before we pass this subject, I think one thing that I can never really understand that we don't do, that a lot of clubs up and down the country do in the Championship, is in terms of reduced ticket prices for students. Now, I've got a lot of friends that live in London. For some reason, I manage to bring them along sometimes. God forgive them for coming, and one of them's even bought a season ticket to the end of the season. And I think this is one thing that when I was at university and we went away a couple of years ago, we go to the games up north, and all those teams would sort of offer reduced tickets. For quite a lot of them did for full-time people in full-time education. Why don't we do things with the amount of the saturation of universities around London, in and around the area? Why do we not do more to try and create ripples in that water and try and bring people in and tempt students that potentially are big? You mentioned it before around people that may have relocated, but you've got students that would potentially come into London, 4 years in London. That's a lot of fans you can potentially get in on the other end of the scale, younger fans. And I think that's a really key opportunity that I just feel like we're missing at the moment. Is there anything that's been done on that?
Well, I think we've tried to do the under 23s prices anyway, because we recognize that whether you're a student, whether you're not a student, it's probably a bit difficult at that, if you're just getting started and working, to try and to afford the full price ticket. So I think we've modeled a couple of different things. We've tried to consolidate things, recognizing that at the age of 16, you don't magically go out into the world of work as well. So we kind of eliminated that price break and things like that a few years ago. But certainly we've tried working with things like student ambassadors, because we've got those halls of residence that are right up the street from us in White City, that's been built for Imperial. Again, limited success on that. That's something I think probably worth dusting off again and having a revamp of that. But all these things, like I said, I'm more than happy to try and work with people. But it's just making sure we got the people in here who definitely want to try and make this happen and really feed the ideas in. It goes back to what Paul had said earlier. It's about, we can make it work, but we have to buy into it as well. But it's always going to have to be about a partnership in terms of how you take this forward. Because you say what you want. The board here, I think, have been really good about listening to fans. They do take things on board. We have tried to push things forward, and that's why I said, if we can get a group together of the people that really want to move this, I'll be open book in terms of what we have and in terms of budgets and everything else, and then we'll see how we can take this forward.
I just think for me, just really quickly, just to round that one off, I think that one kind of sits outside of almost fan-led objectives, because in some elements that's just, I think, purely from the club's perspective, there needs to be a greater ambition to increase the support we're getting at home games. I think that's something that a lot of clubs, as you mentioned, like student ambassadors, etc. I think that's a really key opportunity. Like you look at other clubs use like Uni Days, which is a massive platform for student discounts, etc. They're able to publicize themselves and reduce tickets to, which is all of that, at those sort of apps and websites got massive footfall. I think there are more things that I think the club, and maybe that's something that potentially you guys can maybe reinvestigate, because I think that is really an opportunity that I don't think that's really one for fans to consult. I mean, that's just, these are the general things that the club needs to be exploring, because the attendances aren't probably where they should be.
No, but what I'm saying is, it's one thing for me to say, oh, this is some old dude saying what's going to do. You're a hell of a lot younger than I am. It would be good to have the input of people like your age to say, yeah, but this is what resonates with people my age. That's where the help comes into it, because it's all well and good me sitting around shooting ideas around, but there's an age demographic there.
I'll give you a call,
like,
Lee. I'll give you a call.
We do things differently, Mr. Hoos. We do things differently than we did in your day.
Oh God, I remember the days when I was young and I could do that. I'm way too old. Now, is it okay if we move on to a different aspect of question?
I think people want as well. A lot of the fans want to. I'll just wait for Lee to grab his drink. No, he's not well. Give him a second.
And
I didn't expect us to talk about the stadium for that long. Jesus. Yeah, let's move this
on.
Well,
you know what? It's been standing there for over 100 years. We can talk about it, and at least
it's not going anywhere.
No, and I get the feel. But no, listen, all we can do, and as I said before we started the podcast, people, as we're listening now, are going to go, why didn't you ask this? Why were you not more harder on this? Why didn't you ask about water pressure? Because it always comes up in fans' forums, and we haven't asked it. So, there's things you can't win on, but there's also things that we can work together with the club on, because at the end of the day, the fans in the club want success. Yeah. So we have to do that.
Sorry. So I think a lot of the fans, it's quite a general question. They want to know essentially what is the current financial situation. Obviously, we had the Eze sale, bought it 20 odd million, and whether we can take this at its face value or not. Mick Beale said in the summer that there's about a £10 million shortfall to make up in the next 12 months. Basically, are we close to breaching FFP?
Accounts will be published in the next 10 days. The last published account showed a loss of, I think, about 4.7 million. I can assure you that the accounts will be a lot higher of the loss for last year, but no, that will not have caused us to breach the FFP, nor will we breach FFP. Have we pushed the envelope out to push it as far as we can? Yeah, because the business plan, as you guys know, and you've probably heard me go on about FFP over and over and over again until you're sick of hearing about it, is we're a selling club and we have to sell players. But we just felt last season that we weren't going to get the values we thought we could get for the players. And we thought we're better off keeping the band together to try and do that. Because I do think we have a talented squad. I think there's a huge problem with confidence, and You know, it's every time we seem to, it happened last year. So you can't say it's any one particular manager. You get close to the sun and then something happens where it just bottoms out, you know. And for me, it goes back to, you know, if you look back at probably Luton away is when I first noticed it, you know, that we seem to just, if you have an individual has a bad performance or makes a mistake that causes you to you know, say they don't score a goal or they allow a cross to come in that causes a goal, it's one thing for an individual. But when you get an entire team that just, like, you know, doesn't play well, like the Cardiff game a few weeks back, that was a game was like, what's going on? You know, the Luton game was the same way back in October. And this is when I first started noticing it, back in October. You know, it was Luton. Then, you know, I think we played Cardiff not long after that. They were down to 10 men though, and we did really well. Then we had Wigan, and again, it wasn't a great performance. We managed to win. And then, you know, it was Coventry and Birmingham, and then Coventry, where again, just the performances just weren't there. So you got to scratch your head and say, what's going on with the lads? Why aren't they? Because it's not like they're bad lads. They don't have bad attitudes. No player ever goes out there to say, I'm just not up for it today. But there's something in terms of a confidence factor that is, you know, keeping them from taking that next step. And that's what we really need to do, because we have to unlock it. And I'll tell you what I told every manager, including Mick Beale. You know, the fact that Mick came in, and I don't know, I've heard all kinds of rumors about, you know, him talking to Wolves and him talking to Stoke, and it was like, well, Stoke would have been, you know, they would have had financial, they have their own financial difficulties coming up as well. And, you know, as hard as you try to explain to managers, this is what FFP means in the Championship. When you come, you know, from Villa, who were just splashing the cash when I got the Premier League monies, it must look like, oh my God, I had no idea the constraints would be like this. So, but it is that it's just how it's going to work in the Championship. Unless you've got parachute money, you're just going to be constrained by what you can spend. And so, I
think we all understand. Obviously, we've not got the parachute money. That's fine, but it seemed as though we were trading sensibly, and we pushed the boat out for, if I call it the Sandfield Charlie Austin. So when we converted those 4 loans into permanent signings, was that a gamble that didn't pay off? Did it set us back, do you think? As in, have we not been able to deal the way we want to deal because we did a lot of our deals in whatever, 21, the summer of 2021? Has that summer spending then, and I say gamble like it's a bad thing, but it was like I think every fan would have said you've got to sign him. Has that impacted what we've been able to do and what we will in the future be able to do?
Well, it'll always, anytime you spend money, it has a further impact on that, unless the asset that you bought is then sold and you can reinvest that money. But, you know, I think there was a mixture of business done. If we look at the, I mean, look, Abiri Eze is really who set it up. And so I sort of tell you, but, you know, basically every manager that was interviewed, for me to explain the business plan to him was along the following lines. You know, our whole model is predicated on getting those diamonds in the rough and those young players, improving them and producing them into Premier League players. Forget Championship players, forget, you know, selling somebody for, you know, a couple $100,000 to a League One club, because those markets are dead. We have to produce Premier League players. And the idea is one of two things happen. Either someone comes in here and uses us as a stepping stone to get into the Premier League, and we make money because we sell them, or we all get there together. That's how this is going to have to work, and it's the only way it can work. And that literally is, in a nutshell, my spiel to every manager that has walked through the door. So in terms of things, you can't just buy. And I think any manager would tell you, you just can't buy young players and hope that young players get you up. You have to have the balance in that squad. So it's a bit like loan players. Like, well, the reason you bring in a loan is, one, does it take this club forward? But two, does it complement a player? We bring in somebody that's going to complement Ilias Chair because we need Ilias to look like he can really shine. Is it going to help Chris Willock in terms of developing him into a player? It's just trying to get that balance right between, you know, players that will complement our players, 2 players that are balanced. You've got that experienced head out there that's helping the players develop, that we're bringing in as young players on the pitch, and so that we're recognized full value for them. But, you know, we've got some, you know, some really, you know, I think Sam's been a great acquisition. But you know, while you have you might have a Charlie and a Steph, But then we had, a Sam and an Andre Giselle that's coming in next to those guys in terms of, okay, that's the next step forward for those guys. From people like you're always looking for that next striker, the hardest one to find, the guy who can score goals, the hardest one to find.
Just picking up on something you said, would you say, so look, a lot of fans have opinions on the signing of Chris Martin? Would you say perhaps the way to look at the signing of Chris Martin is that it's almost been bought to increase the value of Ilias Chair and Chris Willett?
You could, Chris Martin's
that's not me trying to do a gotcha, or
No.
you don't want to go like.
Chris Martin, no, that's not it. Chris Martin's been brought in because nobody ever thought that Lyndon was going to get pneumonia and be out for a sustained level of time. So we have to remember, Sinclair Armstrong is a young kid,
Yeah,
and we can't just throw because look, Barry Eze has gone and done well. There were times when the fans were really on his case. He just, and I can remember bringing it up, but it's a supporters forum saying, "You guys say we're all about developing players. This kid misplaces a pass. You guys were all over on his back." And the social media stuff that I hear that Ebbs used to tell me about is like, wow, it just so. Yeah, we need to do that, but we have to remember these are young kids, and no matter what you say about, we want to develop our own. When you put them in and they have a bad game, the fans are pretty unforgiving with them. So it's like, we got to know when to take them out. And, you got Sinclair over here who's originally from Ireland, so he's away from home. We need to protect him. We need to develop him on a step-by-step basis, to get him used to being, up the top there. Same thing's happened with, Charlie Kilmer out on loan now. Charlie, great, Mark Warburton has said that is a really good piece of business, that Charlie Kilmer deal. He'll do well for the club in the future. But he needs to get his confidence, needs to build, because again, he's a young kid. So you've got Lyndon, but even Lyndon, if you think about it, he was playing Australia, did not have the football education that academy guys would have. So while he's in that middle bracket, but that prime age, still has relatively few lesser games under his belt than you would normally at that age. But the thing I love about Lyndon is Lyndon will work his socks off. Lyndon will do whatever it takes. He tries his best to do things, and he's got a great attitude. So it's like, okay, it's somebody I like. We like key guys. We like to work with that. So while he's sometimes I think sometimes people get on his case a little bit about the goals that he misses, but on the other hand, I also remember him missing and the fans really getting behind him in one particular game. So it's kind of like, okay, that's great stuff. That's the kind of stuff that helps players. That's what helps us get them over the line. But we got to remember that we got to take some of the pressure off of them. So somebody like a Chris Martin coming in, it just takes the pressure off. We were signing Chris on a 3.5-year deal. I think everybody would rightly be going, "What the hell are you doing?" It doesn't make any sense saying, with what you're talking about in terms of a business plan. But, Chris is here. Chris has something to prove to us and the rest of the football world, which is, I got more in the tank. This might only be to the end of the season, but I have something to prove, and I think I can show people that I still have more to give. And for us, it suits us as well. It's like, okay, because we got an issue with Lyndon coming back. He's lost quite a bit of weight. He's, thank God he's out of the hospital now. But he's going to be a little while in terms before he gets himself into match fitness again. So we need to have that insurance policy in there to see us for the rest of the season.
Going back a wee bit, Lee, and I'm going to ask you a question that you've heard a million times, just for clarity for people who have maybe missed it before. How does the process of recruitment work at QPR? As in, we have you, CEO, we have Les, Director of Football, we have the manager, we have the youth team coaches. So is it a case of the manager goes to Les and says, "I need a left back." Les comes to you, asks you for a budget. You go to the owners and say, "How much money can we spend on left back?" Or is it a case of Les finds a player and goes to the board without talking to the manager, and then it works that way? What actually is the process? I'm saying this as I'm stupid because I am. So explain to me like a 2-year-old.
Well, first of all, you're looking at every position. We know which ones we'll need, but we expect the recruitment department to say, "Give me we're talking and we say we need a left back." The recruitment department, give me the list of left backs that you're doing and rank them in terms of that. so the recruitment department will always have its fingers on the pulse of people, around the world in terms of, Kenneth Powell's a great example. Belkey had been tracking Kenneth Powell for ages. He was always on the list every time we said, okay, what about left backs? What are we going to do? We got Lee coming out of contract. So what happens then? So he has that list, so what it takes to sign a player though is, the manager needs to agree, the head of recruitment needs to agree, and the director of football needs to agree. I don't have a say, unless someone asks me about a player that I know from the previous club and what they're, from a personality standpoint, what they're like. That's the only input I would ever have into the quality of the player. I don't get involved with whether somebody's right for our system or not. For me, that's about that's Les, Belkey, and Pritchard's job to say this is the right guy for our system. This is how I see him playing going forward. Now what's great about Les is look, under previous clubs, the manager said, "Oh, I need this," and then on paper it might look like a great signing, but the reality is doesn't fit into how that particular manager plays football at all. But he gets carried away because he sees that brings him in, and it's not worked out for a particular player. And this is where Les is worth his way to go, because Les can say, yeah, but he plays as one over here, and that's not the way you're playing. So how do you see him working into your system? So it's great in that respect to be able to flush out logically where somebody actually fits into from a football standpoint with us. Only thing I get involved with is the budget side and potentially negotiations. Sometimes in negotiations, like Jimmy Dunn. Les did the personal terms and I did the club terms with it, because this is, look, at the end of the day, it's like every other business. It's about who you know. It's personal contacts can be quite handy. So the fact that know the guys from Burnley, you could have a chat with the guys from Burnley, get a deal over the line. So we just kind of, there's no set piece that Les does this and I do this. It's each deal we kind of is on its individual merits in terms of who's doing what, who's picking up what.
Okay, before I hand over to Charlie, one thing I would like to ask, say for instance, to clear it up, like I'm stupid again, like a 2-year-old, does Les do the contracts for the youth team players? Like someone like Nico Hakkalainen, a lot of fans are like, 4-year contract, that seems a lot for a player that is loaned out a lot and probably will come back and be loaned out straight away again. Or is that just a calculated risk? Who does the contracts? Who negotiates them? And who spots the players we have to tie down for a long time? Is it the manager? Is it Les? Is it whoever?
The manager will have some input to somebody like a Nico, but really that's down to there's a recommendation to the technical control board, which is what it's called, which would be Chris, Alex, the academy manager, Les. There in terms of first professional contract, second professional contract, and all of this is like, look, if you're giving somebody a 2-year contract, or you probably have to pay them a little bit more. You give somebody a longer term contract, you get away with paying them a little bit less. The fact of the matter is, somebody like Nico is every manager coming in has said he's really got something. I really like him, but he's just not managed to take it to that next level. I mean, the upside on the loans though is, okay, well, we're getting the wage contribution every time he goes down on a loan. So from a business standpoint, look, if I'm getting the wage recovered, then it's he can come back, try again, and if it doesn't work out, then at the end, of course you want to get a big capital sum for them, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. But if you're getting the wages, either paid in full or the majority of it paid while he's out on loan, then it becomes a less critical business decision for you, and it doesn't hit you on the FFP side.
Charlie, thank you, Lee.
I just wanted to come on to just kind of coming a little bit back to transfers and about the deal with Chris Martin. And I think there's been absolute wildfire this week. And I think that's because of a little bit of misunderstanding and a little bit of confusion. And I think coming back to your point, talking about, which is exactly right. No one would ever predicted that Lyndon Dykes had pneumonia and been in hospital, etc., and been left out. You did also mention that Sinclair Armstrong was a 19-year-old who's a kid, inexperienced, at such an early stage in his career where he doesn't deserve to have the ownership or pressure on him to perform at this level. And I think why this Chris Martin transfer caused so much stir was because from outside, from fans, etc., we felt as though we needed another striker in the club for the last 12, 18 months. can you put just, and do you know what as well that adds to this storm is that people read in the press that, you know, we got, I can't remember how much it was about 700k or something for Chair and Dieng being in the World Cup. We got money for Bill's release clause. Can you put in a top line summary for a lot of people that, you know, listen to this podcast or see it on YouTube, etc.? Can you just put out and just explain to people with clarity, like, you know, we can go and read the balance sheet, but not everyone understands the ins and outs of FFP. Can you put it in top line summary as to why in this transfer window or in the summer we didn't go out and buy a striker? Just surmise the current situation and almost the limitations we have in the transfer market and current stuff.
Well, in the first place, if you're going to go buy a striker, you wouldn't buy somebody. What every all the fans want is got to bring in that guy that can score you 20 goals. We don't have the kind of cash to go out and score that guy that can score 20 goals. So you know, where are you going to go? What's out there? What is available? You know, take somebody like Macaulay Baum. You know, Mako was scoring in a team that wasn't creating a lot of chances. So you're looking at it and thinking, he's actually not a bad goal scoring record. If we can get a hold of him, we might be able to take him to the next level. Again, it didn't quite work out for him, but it is that position at the top of the pitch is the hardest one to do. So we'll have the debate. It's like, okay, if we go out and get a striker, what do we do? What do we get? It's like, well, if you don't do this, then you have to go young. It's like, well, if we're going young, we want to go young within the club in terms of, you know, it's like, you know, everybody wants to get the next Tammy Abrams in or you know, but it's just not that simple, because when he first burst onto the scene, he was a complete unknown. So you can either take the chance and try and get somebody from a young player from a Premier League club, or you go with what you think you have. And, you know, quite frankly, you know, last year was a great example. I was, you know, to me, it seems like somebody at the top of the pitch probably would have been more sensible than bringing in a midfielder, but that's what we did. But again, you have to give people, you know, leeway to say, this is how I want to set the team out. You don't want to just completely cut the legs out from underneath people and say, no, you can't do that, you can't do this. You're trying to help a manager as much as you possibly can. Same this summer in terms of, you know, how Mick wanted to set the team up. You know, he felt it was more important to bring in someone like a Tim than it was to try and get somebody, because he couldn't get the right person that would fit in at the top of the pitch for him.
On that, I'm pleased you mentioned Mick Beale and Tim. Do you not worry that someone like Tim, who's not our player, he's on loan from Villa, and look, if you're top of the league and he's flying, wow, brilliant. But now in our situation, we're mid-table. Yeah, we could still make the playoffs. We could also be dragged into a relegation fight. We've probably got next to zero chance of signing him in the summer because Villa will want a lot of money for him. And at the moment, I know he didn't play Saturday. He seems to be starting ahead of Dizelle, who is our player, and ahead of Amos, who I know has been injured. But for the most of the season, who is our player, it feels that there's a lot of what the manager wants, the manager gets. So you said Mick Beale wanted a midfielder, he wanted Timmy Rabunam. Is there not should the structure not be in place at QPR where we turn around to a manager and say, because we've invested however much in Luke Amos, we've invested in Andre Dizelle. You've got players there already. You can't have a loan to stop the development of these players. And I will sort of, I can't think of the word. It should be noted that Tim has stayed fit all season, which has been invaluable. So I do get that. But do you see where I'm coming from? That we've got this director of football, and we've got a recruit, and we've got a stats man in Andy Belk, and that's one model. But then we also have managers like Mick Beale, excuse me, who brings in Timmy Rabunam, who brings in Balogun, or Warburton, who brought in Andre Gray on loan, who brought in Moses Odebajo or Lee Wallace, who they've played with before, managed before. And it sort of, does that not leave us open to a situation like we're currently in, where when the manager changes, we have a rocky patch, as opposed to Luton, where the manager's changed and they haven't missed a step? And I'm sure it's more complicated in the way I've just said. But do you think we're trying to run a hybrid when we should be running just one?
Again, it goes back to what I said about balance and trying to make sure we get the balance right, and players who could complement what we're trying to do. You know, manager's playing style in terms of how he thinks he can take it forward. Now, you know, have we said no to managers before? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it has happened quite a bit where it's like, no, that really doesn't fit here, or it's stymieing someone's growth too much. But some of the players you mentioned, you know, like Moses, is, remember, he was actually our player though. It's not like we brought him in alone. He was given a short-term contract, and it's like, okay, you know, and Les has said, look, I've never had an issue with Moses' ability to play. It's just, does he have the perseverance because of his injury record? That was always the big question mark. And we recognized going into this game, look, we're not going to get the real deal. Someone who's the real deal isn't playing for us. They're playing for, you know, Manchester City or somebody like that. We're bringing in people, you know, like the Sam Fields of this world, who's like, okay, Sam's had a few injury problems. We know it's a quality player. It's just managing those injury problems, making sure he does all right. You know, that's one that's worked quite well for us. That's been quite good. You know, somebody like Kenneth Powell making that jump from Holland over to here in terms of, okay, and quite frankly, Kenneth, we've matched him very well. I think he's normally would take somebody a year to adapt to football. He seems to have taken to it straight away. So fair play to the management staff on that. You know, someone like Tim coming in is going to be about, no, this is where I think we can get up and down. The one place in midfield that we don't have is someone with the legs to go box to box. You know, we need somebody that can put the energy in it. And that's where Tim could, because, you know, Luke is Luke, Andre is Andre, and Sam is Sam, and Steph is Steph. You know, and you've got two different types of midfielders in there, but there's a third type that we need that would actually complement those other two types and just adds to it. So it's not about bringing in what you already have and the type of midfielder you already have. It was about bringing in a different type of midfielder, somebody that gives you a little bit, you know, something different than those two other sets don't give you.
Can I just come in with a couple of things before, and we will let you go because I know you're not well laid. I can see it. You don't look that well. You look like you've had something I've cooked, to be fair.
I can't. No matter this thing just won't go. I keep, you know, I thought it was supposed to go after about, you know, a week to 10 days, but I'm still as testing as positive as day one right now.
It's not good. I know the feeling. Trust me. Do you get frustrated? Like sometimes we all do at our cup record. Because we talk about extra revenue, we talk about, you know, everyone all signal dancing all before the games and get the atmosphere up and going. You know, cup runs to me would frustrate the life out of me. We need money, we need revenue, we need people through the gates, and yeah, every flipping cup, we just, no matter who the manager is, no matter who the players are, we just have the same result. We just go out. Does that not frustrate you the way it frustrates the hell out of me?
Absolutely, that's not the only thing that's frustrating, but yeah, this is the whole point of the conversation tonight. Is like, look, I know, you know, I know how I can come across, you know, especially when you're not well and you feel irritating, you know, probably irritating the fans as well. But
that's my job.
Football's about venting. You know, and you know, I couldn't go to Huddersfield this weekend, obviously, but watching that on a stream, yeah, when you're there, you have to do director's box, decorum, and all that. But when you're not there, you can kind of cut loose, and that's one of those ones where, you know, we not saying things like the way you want it to go. Well, you do feel like you can be a fan and know exactly what we're going through, saying, God, this is frustrating. Why in the hell am I putting myself through this all the time? The same questions you guys are asking. Why in the hell do I go through this every flipping week? And look, and at the end of the day, I thought about it over the weekend. I thought, yeah, I can sit there and moan. I can sit there and be pissed off because, you know, things didn't happen the way I wanted it to happen. But at the end of the day, you need to find the solutions. And, you know, we are doing some things differently, because it'd be different if I thought these, you know, it's player attitudes, because it's not, you know, if I could just put my finger on it, well, if I could put my finger on it, we wouldn't be having this call, because I'd be in one of my many offices, probably the one in Miami this time of the year, and I'd be telling Jurgen Klopp what's going wrong and what he needs to do to fix it. But it's just not that simple, you know. And sometimes what we can't do though is do what we always did and then expect a different result. We've got to shake things up a little bit right now. Not dissimilar to what you guys are saying. Why don't you shake things up? You know, club seems like it's shrugging its shoulders. why don't you shake things up a little bit, get some fresh ideas in? And that's exactly what we're doing on the player side. By the way, I think you're right. I think we do need to shake things up, and I'm happy to get fresh voices in. And the players sometimes need some fresh voices in, because you got a manager who didn't have a preseason, who's coming in trying to figure out, right, what's going on, guys? You're a talented squad, you're good lads. What's going on? What is it about the mentality, and how do we get this over the line? So, as I said, it's about trying different things, but incredibly frustrating. And I think the players get frustrated with it as well, because I'm sure if they knew, if they had the answer, they do it. But there's a lot of questions about what, the first thing is, the question's been asked is, guys, why do you think this is happening? So it's for them to come to grips to say, all right, let's take this next step. We got to get this over the line, because we know. Just ask you guys, do you think we have a talented squad?
Say that again, sorry.
Do you think we have a talented squad?
Yes.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do as well. I think we have a stronger squad this year than last year. But sometimes
I think perhaps look, you'll know more than the ins and outs. I think the Michael Beale thing has
Michael, like you did there.
within the club, whatever you want to call him. I think it's completely knocked everyone for six. I think everyone's feeling really sorry for themselves, as I think, by the way, you guys in the boardroom have every right to.
I don't feel sorry for myself at all. Just let you know, it's like, as far as but my attitude is Mick Beale doesn't give a damn about us. Mick Beale's moved on, so why in the hell is anybody worried about him?
Look,
for me, okay, he's gone. He's gone. Let's just
fans don't move on. We still talk about Jose Bosingwa laughing at Reading many years ago. We're not going to move on that quickly. And I'm sure a lot of the play, like as you said, they're good lads. And someone like Tim, he's 19. He would have been brought to the club because I'm sure Mick Beale sold him the vision. Ethan Laird was sold the vision. How can you play 100? Also, Ethan Laird and Timmy Rabunam, they know that they're probably not going to be here next season. So they don't, and I don't want to be one of those fans that moans about loan players. So I think that's kind of it. And I think we've been dealt a really bad hand, and I think we were unlucky. And I think when you say a refresh, I love this squad. I love what Warburton did with it. I loved how Mick Beale was playing football. I truly love the squad. I believe personally it's time for a refresh, and it's time to sell some of our assets and build a new team like we did after Eze, Brighton, Manning and Naki Wells all went. We built a new team. We built a better team. I just personally feel that time has come.
Well, first of all, the object was keeping the team together for the last couple of years. We're constantly going to try and build on it. But obviously, if you're a selling club, you can't keep doing that forever. So there does come a time when you do have to say, okay, well, what happens after that? But right now, it's just, I want to get through this season. We don't want to leave any stone unturned to try and unlock the potential that's in those guys right now, all of them, and bring them together as a team to see how we can take this forward and try to end this season on a positive note, the way we started it.
Just to extend on that, and talks about selling players, etc. Will we ever have the opportunity to sell Chris Willock? What's the situation with his contract? Also, Dunn, Dickie Dieng. What's the situation with contracts with some of those players that are coming close now?
Well, the players, there's options for some, there aren't for others. Those are ones that Les is dealing with their agents right now.
Because
I gotta tell you, if somebody comes in and says, I want 25 grand a week, it's gonna be like, okay, right. I hope you got something lined up for this summer then.
I completely understand that. I just want to make a point around that. I think I remember in the fans forum, I think the conversation was even asked then about Chris Willock's contract. And it just seems to be over the last couple of years, it's been, I understand it's, as well as down to financial position and negotiations, etc., budget. But it just seems to be, and I think there's always this bit of a fan perspective that we're just leaving it so late. And obviously, I'm not asking you to tell me now how much money is he asking for, what are we offering him? But I think it's just sometimes it just feels a little frustrating that we're getting towards this latter stage of the season now, and it doesn't really seem to be much progress of any of those contracts.
No, I agree. The problem is you can't force a player to sign a contract. But on the other hand, you can't turn around and you're right. I'm not going to tell you, well, this is where we are. This is the gap.
That's ridiculous.
Where we see each other right now. So that's not going to happen.
No.
Before we let you,
question
hang on,
about contracts.
Robert, hang on one sec. Well,
Go, Paul.
we're going to have to let the man go soon because he's slowly choking himself into an illness here. So I'm going to ask my last question, and you guys can ask yours,
Yes.
and then we'll do it that way, if you don't mind. I like what you said about Beale. He didn't give a damn about us. He will never give a damn about us ever again. And yeah, he's gone. We will move on. But I hope Glasgow Rangers never win anything as long as they exist while he's there.
Here's the problem you'll have, because as difficult as the English press can be, the Scottish press are just awful. You just provided them with a headline now in terms of we don't give a damn about Mick Beale. Because I didn't say I never gave a damn about Mick Beale. What I said was Mick's gone. Our chapter in his
it's
life.
too late. It's already been printed on the back pages.
What I said was he doesn't give a damn about us. I just said it in my bad.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. He doesn't now. No, he's moved on. It's all about Rangers.
I didn't say you didn't care about him. I said he didn't care about us. Just to clarify that, if any Scottish journalists, and then I'll try and do it my best Northern Irish accent.
You should charge him a fee for using your podcast.
Well, to be fair, I did get phoned up by a Scottish radio station who probably got the only Northern Irish person, one of the few who doesn't like Rangers or Celtic, and was quite happy for both of them to not win anything ever again. But that's it. That's me. Right, listen, my last question was, you'll be aware of these, you might not be, of Charlie Austin's tweets this week, which is sort of looking at the Chris Martin side, and he was asked maybe to retire when he was at QPR. You can clear that up. But also, were you hurt by what Holloway said as well about Steve McLaren and how things were done behind his back? There's a nice easy end of my questions for you.
Okay, well let's deal with the Charlie Austin. I have no idea what anybody's tweeted because I don't do Twitter. But I was in the room when Charlie was quote asked about retirement, and what Les actually said was, "What are your plans, mate?" He said, because if you keep playing, you look like you're carrying your knee now. You're going to have to work much harder on the training ground in order to keep things up. Now, Charlie turned around and twisted that and said, "Can you believe they asked me if I was retiring?" I was like, well, actually, what he said was, "What are your plans?" It looks like that knee is really you're starting to really carry it right now. I would have been embarrassed if I were Charlie, because basically what he said is, "You're not working hard enough." Now, rather than twist that around and say, "Oh, can you believe they asked me about retirement?" It's like, bloody hell, Charlie, man, you know, instead of playing the victim, look at what you do. Look at what the man's trying to tell you, because he's trying to help you. But it's like I just, you know, but look, Charlie and I go way back. I sold him to QPR when I was at Burnley. He's very confident. You know, he knows what he wants, and you like that in a striker, quite frankly. But you know that Charlie beats the tune of his own drum, so it's like, you know, like him, lovable rogue in many ways. Does make me laugh, but at the end of the day, it's like, look, it is what it is. You know, if you want to keep playing, this is about the work you put in right now. But if you think you know, you look at somebody like Lyndon. Who wants, you know.
Okay, we might have to.
What the?
Oh Jesus!
Yeah, I feel like I might have asked too long a question for someone who's struggling to speak.
I think you did. Yeah.
Well, I blame you two. That doesn't work. I think that, but for the record, everyone who's watching YouTube, they know what's going on. I don't need to explain.
Yeah.
Our audio people, Lee, who has just took a coffee fit and legged it, is the only way I can, and hopefully he'll come back. If not, we might have to ring 111. Does anyone know where he lives? I don't. Anyway,
when he comes back.
By the way, for people who listen to this who are Charlie Austin fans, that's Lee Hughes' statement of what happened. We weren't there. We don't know. He's had his say. Charlie Austin is more than happy to come on and have his say when he feels like it. I'm not going to take sides. That's between them two. So, which is fair, I think. You know, we're not going to. And I filled that time up lovely. You still, Jesus Christ, we thought we were going to have to ring 111. And you know they take hours to get through. We'll have played the Saturday's game.
Tell you what, why don't we let Lee go? Because he's been phenomenal. I don't sport. Lee, thank you. So I'm coughing now.
Don't you start.
Thank you for your time. It's like I said at the start, we've had many executives and many people in the offices at QPR who wouldn't give the fans the time of day. 1 win in 14, you fronted up. And I think that, like I said, I think that's really commendable. The fact that you're struggling with illness, doubly commendable. Thank you very much, Lee.
And good luck with Saturday. Hope it goes swimmingly with both tiers.
Yes.
Thanks. The only thing I would say is, I can preach 1 in 14, 1 in 15, actually, I think it is now. Give me another bullet to my brain. But it's the performances, I think, that I look at more than the results, because the results eventually come around. Because I can remember, December 2019, I was getting letters about how we needed to sack Mark Warburton. It was terrible, and but we knew the performance, the underlying performances, it was actually quite good. This is the same way. The performances of Swansea, performances in Sheffield United were actually good. Now, no excuse for like Cardiff away. That just wasn't a good performance. But we really need to focus on getting the performances back, because it will come once we get that sorted out. So again, it's just about trying to get the confidence back up in the players, getting them going forward, and I really just don't want it to sound like a cliche. It's like, because anybody can come on here and say, yeah, we need to get behind the boys. It's just not that simple, because I know how frustrating it is. But see, what we really do need to try and get behind the boys, because like I say, if they were a bunch of mercenaries who were here just tossing it off, that'll be a different story. And I'll probably be the first one just throwing my toys out of the pram right now. But the fact of the matter is, I know they're a decent bunch of lads. I just need to somehow tap into that. Remember that they're very talented football players. Get in touch with that and get those performances to consistently going and get some clean sheets in there.
Right, here, Lee. Well, listen, go to bed, get well, and hopefully see you again soon. But thanks for coming on, and hopefully you didn't find it too uncomfortable.
No, it's fine.
Thank you, Lee. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Lee. Cheers, Lee. We're going to stay on. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Well, there you go. I did actually think at one stage we would have to form 1-1-1 there. So hopefully people watch that will see that we've done our bit. I'm always apologising because I know we're going to get criticised. I know it. I've done this long enough. But we've asked some interesting questions. We've got some interesting responses. Didn't start off so well with the start of the interview when he maybe took the question wrong. But listen, everyone can make their own mind up. And we've done our job, hopefully, as best as we can. And people will understand that. So anyway, before we go, Robert and Charlie, what's your thoughts on that interview?
I think that he's more than happy to talk about the football side. My impression was he wants to talk about the football side of it, but I think there's other issues at QPR right now, and I don't think he felt very comfortable talking about some of the other things. He was more than happy to talk about the performance at Hull and let my manager, let my director of football talk about that. Let my chief exec tell me how he's going to get young kids into QPR and tell me how he's watching the finances. That's just my thoughts if I'm being harsh. But like I said twice, he fronted up, and we've had people that haven't fronted up before, and he was really, really ill. So yeah,
you see that he wasn't faking
really, really ill. It was good to chat to him.
Yeah, Charlie.
100% commend the bloke for coming on. I think I was very surprised given the circumstances, etc. I don't know, as we finish that, I just feel as though, being brutally honest, I feel as though he's a bit of a defeated man. And I don't get the sense of the vision of where he wants to take the club. And I don't blame him in some circumstances. I completely see, look, we're having trouble with getting a new stadium. We are really, really up against it in our current situation with the stadium, finances, etc., etc. And I can see eventually how over time that really would back you down. But we almost need a bit better than that. That sounds, and contradicts what I just said, but it's almost, I just don't see the vision. And I think this is probably getting quite harsh now, and I think it's all really good and well, and I think it's really good he wants to take the time and chat to the fans, etc., etc. But I think there's a lot of things where the club should potentially be driving themselves and putting in more initiatives to try and take things potentially more forward than they are. And I think that's really easy for me to sit here and say, and we don't see 95% of the things that go behind the door.
That's why you're here.
What we see is the end product. And I think, and a lot of things in terms of the end product of the match day experience that we get and all these things, the football, and everything else, I think it's not quite where we like it to be, but it's difficult to, I just feel he's a little defeated, I think is how I'd kind of surmise it. And I just don't see, he hasn't installed me of confidence that he's going to take us on a path. And that's maybe a little bit optimistic, a little bit philanthropic, but it's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult.
I think,
it's I think what's so hard to say, and it's so easy in certain circumstances on Twitter all week and going, get rid of Les, get rid of Lee, it's the board, it's Batio, it's Fernandez, it's this, it's that. But in reality, all we see is the team on the pitch. So I find it difficult. Yes, of course, you can dig deeper and look at the finances and you can go, Lee's done this. We haven't really generated much revenue, X, Y, Z. But I think it's very, very difficult for anyone right now, unless you have some inside intel, to sit here and go, X, Y needs to go, X needs to go, X needs to go, because we don't see the full picture. And that's what I kind of struggle with. If someone goes to me, what do you think is wrong with the club right now? There's so many facets to it that I couldn't pinpoint on one single person or one sort of exact element that I think is wrong. I think it's a whole culmination. I think is what he said, the club needs a shake up. So it's difficult.
What I took, I know I'm kind of asking myself a question, which is a bit weird. God knows the questions I ask in this head sometimes, even I don't want to answer them. But what I took from that was, and it's a shame he was ill. That's not his fault. It's not our fault. It's not the listener's fault. It's not anyone's fault. It's one of them things that happens. He maybe was a bit ambitious thinking he'd get through the interview, whatever, I don't know. The training ground, brilliant. Safe standing, the incentives behind that, great. Fan-led. The name of the stand, bull stands. I know, I know there was fans had to pay for it a bit and everything else, but it's all been done, all been fan-led, all been supported. The River there's so many good things at QPR, and here we are yet again asking for fans again to get involved in more groups when there is so many groups within QPR. How would you know which meeting he was in half the time? He's gone to this one, to that one, to the River the stadium, this, that. There's enough groups. I don't get involved in these things because I don't really see the point of me being there because I just talk nonsense. But I understand what he said. So I think training ground, brilliant. All that. My frustration would be for him is he's quite happy to talk about his side of it. But when you're asking and pushing on stuff like, are you not disappointed that, Warburton was released, not renewed, or whatever you want to put it, because he wouldn't play in the youth, and the very players that he was supposed to play have now all been either gone or on loan. So that must be frustrating, and I'd like to engage with him more on that, because he will then say that's Les's domain. So it's typical QPR that we can only go so far on certain questions, and it's a mixed bag that he can only answer some, Les answers others, and he says they come together and they sort it all out. The reality is, and I can't remember which one of you guys said it, I think it might have been Robert, we could go either way here. We could be asking these questions a wee bit doom and gloom, and we could just miss out in the playoffs, or we can get dragged to the other end, and then just the season just pits us out with a squeaky arse, whether we get dragged into a relegation battle. My worry is if this team, and it's not about the personality, it's not about their ability, it's just the games we're losing and how we're losing, sucked into a relegation battle could be a worry. With looking at Martin and young Armstrong as your main ways out, there's got to be other players who will help them out, and I'm sure they will. And I'm sorry for being so negative, but I am terrified of the next few games. If we have a bad run starting on Saturday, that we could have a squeaky arse. Am I being over pessimistic?
No, I don't think you're being pessimistic. I still believe it will turn around because they believe they've got a good set of players. I think they do. The only thing I would say, which I wanted to pick him up on at the time, he said, our business model, we sell players to the Premier League. They've sold one player to the Premier League.
Not paid the rest off.
That's not a business model. Let's revisit it at the end of the summer transfer window, where they might need to have sold 3 players to the Premier League. But at the moment, they've sold 1 player to the Premier League in however many years. And if that's the business model, it's not a very good one.
Freeman. Did he not go to Sheffield United when they're...
I stand corrected. 2 players in the Premier League.
For me, it's just
I'm just being picky, Robert. You know
No,
what I'm
you're
like.
absolutely no. You're right, and he would pull me up on that. But yeah, you know what? As fans, we've shaped the club before. We'll shape the club again.
Very true. Well, listen, we'll have a quick chat about Saturday because we should do, because after all, that's what we hear about is football. It's interesting we've given them 2 tiers. That'll make a bit of a noise. And hopefully we'll win. Over to you, Robert.
Like I said last week we're due a win. We didn't win. I think this week we're due a win. And I think we'll win.
Charlie?
He's just shaking his head.
This is good for YouTube, but for audio, we need a bit more.
Oh God, I don't want to think about it. I don't know. Honestly, I'm just going in open mind and just see what turns up. I'm just at that stage now. So whatever comes is what comes.
Good man. Well, listen, guys, thanks for sticking with the podcast for so long. Everyone who's listening and watching, hope you feel that we did what we did, and hopefully you get some answers. There's never enough answers, but that's QPR. No. Here's to winning Saturday. Thanks for tuning in and watching Open All Odds, the QPR podcast for fans, by fans. And please, God, win. Just win. Just one win. That's all we need. And then we can not be looking over our shoulder. So good luck, Saturday, Rangers. Let's put them back in their den. Thank you for listening.